Welcome all. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee to order on Thursday, August 13th at 5:05 p.m. at the Austin Transit Partnership Office Boardroom at 203 Colorado Street, Austin, Texas 78701. As we start, we're going to start with the call to order and go over our roll call. If folks remember the way to do this, this is Chair Izhar. I'm here. Vice Chair Summers.
I'm here.
Thank you. Let's keep on going. I'm going to go the other way. Constable Sweet.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks.
Here.
Mr. Gorth.
Here.
Mr. Crossley.
Here.
Ms. McGehee.
Here.
Mr. Handel. Committee Member Gonzalez. Ms. Berry and Secretary Garza. And just to let folks know I have received some communication. Both Catalina Berry and Carter Gonzalez are running slightly late, but they'll be joining us soon. Just giving a heads up, and we'll acknowledge them as they join the meeting. This takes us to our first item, which is the land acknowledgement, which Ms. Berry usually manages, but I'm going to go ahead and read the land acknowledgement that is often used by the University of Texas through the Native American Indigenous Studies program. We would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the indigenous lands of Turtle Island, the ancestral name for what is now called North America. Moreover, I would like to acknowledge the Alabama Coshada, Caddo, Carrizo, Comercudo, Coatlecan, Comanche, Kickapoo, Lipanapache, Toncava, and Isleta del Sur Pueblo, and all the American Indian and indigenous peoples and committees who have been or have become a part of these lands and territories in Texas. Thank you, and thank you for the reminder to slow down. The first item we have, of course, is public comment. Do we have anybody sign up, staff? Anybody in the room? Not seeing anybody. If you are online and have joined the meeting as someone who would like to provide testimony or public comment, please raise your hand and we can go ahead and make sure that you have the ability to speak. Not seeing any, we'll move forward. Again, if folks want to at any point, please raise your hand and we'll acknowledge y'all. The first action item that we have is approval of our July 9th meeting minutes. Those were circulated in advance. Any questions or comments or edits that anybody would like to suggest to those? If not, do we have a motion to approve the July 9th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Crossley. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Committee Member McGehee. So we have a motion by Committee Member Crossley, seconded by Ms. McGehee, to go ahead and approve the July 9th meeting minutes. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye or raise your hands. That passes unanimously. Thank you all so much. So if you all remember from our last meeting, our governance committee was going to look at having some recommendations. That's one of our action items around the budget. We had a pretty robust conversation in advance of this meeting, and really felt like, at this time, rather than make recommendations, what we wanted was to go through staff presentations and learn about what is being talked about and get some have some questions answered, and then we likely be returning back next month with some recommendations, particularly for the CAP Metro and ATP boards that will be considering their budget then. As you all might know, the City of Austin, of course, adopted its budget yesterday. For city staff, there's no expectation for you to know exactly what happened. I know we're like less than 24 hours away. So all that said, we'll start with our discussion items. And if we do not have any concern from folks, do folks mind if I change the order? I do want to acknowledge that Committee Member Gonzalez is joining us as well. Thank you so much. If there's no concern, can we start with our ATP budget presentation? Staff here had a little bit of a time thing, so we wanted to make sure that they could go first. Go ahead. Thank you so much. We have staff coming up. Please introduce yourself. We'll pull up your slides and we can get started. As always, committee members, if you have a clarifying question during a presentation, go ahead and ask it. If not, We'll make sure that we have time for questions at the end of each presentation as well from our relevant staff. And just to speak to the order, we're going to have the Cap Metro staff go next and then City of Austin. Thank you all for being here.
Good evening, Chair, committee members. Brian Rivera, ATP CFO.
Good evening. My name is Dan Balbrook. I'm the Senior Vice President for Budget and Treasury.
As we start on the presentation, I just also want to acknowledge that Ms. Berry has joined us virtually as well. Thank you for being here.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. I want to start off with just a quick overview of our budget components. We have our budget broken up into essentially three components. We have our annual budget, capital budget, and spending plan. The annual budget is effectively where we bring in all the revenue and we plan for all of our appropriations or money going out to different funds. Our capital budget is where we budget for our expenses in our capital fund. These are the project-related costs and the support costs as well. And then the third component is our spending plan. The spending plan is our cash out the door, money that we plan on spending throughout the fiscal year. And that really informs our capital budget need, which then informs our appropriation need. So all three are very much interconnected. The annual budget and capital budget are approved by our board. And the spending plan is an internal process we undergo. On the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see our budget timeline. Our March-June timeframe was when we did our budget development internally. July, we presented our initial budget to the board and published it. We're here in August to speak to y'all. And then in September, we'll take the budget forward again to the board for adoption. Throughout the process of crafting this budget, we had three real priority outcomes that we used to kind of inform the whole process and the approach. The first one is protecting affordability and securing the corridor. What this means is securing right-of-way or property along the alignment. We know that that's one of our most expensive components of this project, so it's important to secure it early. It's also partially about making sure our contracts are set up to mitigate inflation and other cost risks. The next component or outcome is effective contract management. This is the management of cost. So our day-to-day costs through our contract, through strong oversight and coordination with our contract partners. And then also maintaining reimbursability for the FTA or federal grant. The third component or outcome is the process of progressing through the federal process. So we want to make sure that we're moving continuously toward the goal of entry to engineering so we can set ourselves up for successful application for the FTA grant.
As Dan was mentioning, one of the priority outcomes that we have is effective contract management. And one of the things that we just wanted to walk you through and we walked the board through in July were some of the processes that we've sort of implemented over the past couple of years, right? Especially so from a staffing standpoint, every year as we're crafting the budget that we're bringing forward to the board, we always look at our internal resources as far as ATP full-time equivalents or ATP staff members, as well as which contracts that we have on board that maybe we can take advantage of. So one of the efforts that we always walk through with each of the executives and each of the department leads really is to get a better understanding of their resource needs for the upcoming fiscal year and then also through the life of the program. There's certain positions that we might onboard and have as ATP staff members, but then there's other positions that might be best brought on through a contract or through our staff augmentation contracts, which we'll touch on later. And those are for those resources that maybe aren't a full-time need, but we'll need them to hit certain milestones in the federal process or the design process. And one of the things that we've been able to achieve over the last couple of years is to reduce the overall staffing level for ATP as ATP positions, right? Back in, I think, 24, we had about 86 or 87 full-time equivalents, bless you, in our budget. And again, as we went through this resource need and sort of overview and thinking about our organizational development, we've been able to reduce that. And in this year's budget, we're carrying 64 full-time equivalents. So we've been able to methodically reduce that over the last couple of years. The other piece is just active and effective contract oversight. One of the things that our procurement department and each of our project managers have been able to implement since onboarding these larger contracts that we had is a monthly sort of contract management meeting where we understand what's happening in the contract as well as we understand what's happening from a spend standpoint. We're always wanting to monitor the dollars going out the door, and that's one of those elements where we're able to all sit down as a group.
Hi, honey.
Can you see me?
That's one of the forums where we can have that discussion and really get an understanding of how contracts are progressing and how the deliverables are coming for each of those contracts. So I wanted to set the stage for some key highlights that are embedded in our fiscal year 2027 budget.
But anyway,
from a revenue standpoint, we're anticipating about $194 million coming in from the contract revenue that we receive from the city, as well as generating around $15.5 million in investment and other revenue. Again, one of the things, as I mentioned, is as we go through that active contract management and sort of monthly budget meetings, a lot of the active contract management that our PMs or our project managers do on a month-to-month basis results in savings ultimately. And the good thing, as Dan mentioned, is the way our budget is structured within the capital budget where we have all of our expenses currently. Those appropriations or the dollars that the board awards for the upcoming fiscal year, the board appropriates, those dollars carry over year. They're multi-year. So again, any dollars that aren't spent in any one fiscal year carry over into the following fiscal year and is used as a starting point to develop the appropriation plan for the next fiscal year. On the spend plan side, the budget funds partial award of design services within our 2 design build contracts that we have, or progressive design build contracts that we have. So again, as we look at fiscal year 2027, we'll be advancing design of the light rail alignment and the maintenance and operations facility to another level to continue the advanced design for that and get ready really for construction. And then lastly, embedded in our spend plan are some dollars for both City of Austin and Cap Metro positions for staff that we're ultimately going to be relying on as we're advancing design and soliciting comments from them and trying to get through the permitting process. We understand that that's a additional resource need by both of our partners. So again, we're going ahead and helping fund certain positions to sort of help expedite that process and not take up other resources that could be utilized by each of those partners. Next slide. It's not clicking. Go ahead. Perfect. So our 27 spend plan is really broken down into 3 main categories. On the left-hand side, we have the project-specific expenses. So as I mentioned earlier, we have some contracts on hand where we're able to utilize for staff augmentation. And again, those are those resources that we might need to onboard or utilize as we're hitting a particular milestone or advancing a particular element of design, but we don't necessarily need to onboard that body for a full time. And those services are provided through our delivery partner contract, which is AECOM, as well as some on-call engineering and planning contracts that we have out there, as well as some real estate services. On the top portion of that breakdown are the project-specific contracts. So I mentioned earlier, we have two main progressive design build contractors on board, and one is Austin Rail Constructors, who's leading the design and construction for the alignment portion of the project. So the 9.8 miles that we're implementing. And then Kiewit Austin Partnership is the team that's helping advance the operations and maintenance facility for Austin Light Rail. And as you guys may have seen at the July board meeting as well, we awarded the vehicle contract. So again, we're just recently going through that onboarding process. And again, the design for the light rail vehicles will continue to advance, and the two other partners will be able to get some information to help further the design. On the bottom portion of the left-hand side of the screen, there's this category called betterments. Now, might be asking what a betterment is, but it is those type of utilities or utilities that we're ultimately going to be relocating or moving, or is within the constraints of the guideway. But for instance, Austin Water or Austin Energy might want us to increase that particular or advance that that particular utility or project or element to a level of service that is above and beyond what's already there. So think of a water pipe. This is, instead of just throwing a number, a 24-inch water pipe, we might be upsizing it to a 48-inch water pipe. So those are those type of projects along the alignment that, again, since we're going to be already in the ground relocating these utilities, we're going to assist the city and sort of helping them implement their capital improvement program for their particular projects. On the right-hand side, we have our administrative expenses. So I think of these as all of the other expenses that are not project specific. So all of the other costs associated with running the organization, whether it's legal costs, financial services, IT, marketing, as well as our personnel ATP cost. On the admin side, that further breakdown is broken up into these three distinct categories. So again, we have personnel costs, business support contracts were referenced on the other slide as well. And again, these are the legal, financial advisory services, our risk advisor, who currently assists us with all of the procurements that we've done over the last year, and is also going to be assisting us as we're developing the work packages for construction, and as well as material and others. As I mentioned earlier, our FTE count is going from 65 to 64. So that was just an element, again, of sitting down with each of the executives and understanding which positions they had within their particular department that they felt they'd be utilizing going into fiscal year 2027, and getting a better understanding of if there was a vacant position that maybe wasn't going to be filled or was going to be utilized through our staff augmentation contracts. Also included in the budget is a proposed 3% wage increase for eligible employees for staff. And lastly, the one note that I want to make here for this committee is, again, this year's we've been able to develop our investment portfolio and utilize the dollars that we've received from the city to generate interest income. That revenue, again, this year is offsetting a lot of these costs that we're incurring on the personnel side. So again, our interest income is expected to be greater than our personnel costs, which is, again, a cool milestone or a cool achievement that we've been able to have over the last couple of years as we've been able to develop our investment portfolio. This is an overall, and I know Dan touched on this earlier, but overall roadmap for the summer. So right now we're in front of this committee next week we'll be in front of our board doing a sort of budget deep dive, if you want to call it that. We're going to be going into a little more detail with the board and having open conversations with them about what's all included in our FY27 budget. At the end of this month, we'll be sitting down with the Austin Light Rail Advisory Group and walking them through our FY27 budget. And we'll be coming back to the board in September for budget adoption.
Thank you so much. I'll open it up to staff, questions from our committee members, and thank you, staff, for helping me see folks online as well. Appreciate it. Anybody with questions or comments? Go ahead, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks, your microphone. Thank you.
Does it help any?
Yeah.
Okay. You employ a delivery partner in the form of AECom. What prevents you from transferring a job that's in the currently on the ATP roster? And we'll just ask AECom to do it for a while so that our headcount is reduced. Is there any review procedure that prevents you from doing that, or?
Yeah, so the way we approach kind of our staffing plan, and as we're developing our staffing plan for the upcoming fiscal year, is we really only want to onboard the positions that are going to be long-term. They're going to be long-term needs for ATP. Only those positions, again, as we're advancing design, that maybe we need to ramp up a particular specialty on the engineering side to review a particular set of design sets, we utilize that contract for those services. So it's an element that we go through every year as we're having these conversations with our executives.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Other folks with questions or comments? Mr. Barossi, please go ahead.
I think I have a more elemental questions here, but that the entirety of the 2020 vote, some of those funds go to Metro Rapids, and that goes to Cap Metro, and those funds sort of aren't in this picture at all. Like they're not sort of going to ATP and then going over there. You know what I mean? Or
right. So we actually have a couple of interlocal agreements that we've entered into with Cap Metro to help further some of those projects. So think of the Expo and Pleasant Valley bus rapid transit projects. Those dollars came out of Prop A receipts that we received from the city. And those projects are being implemented right now. And there was a specific period of when those services were going to be reimbursed for in a specific dollar amount. The most recent interlocal agreement that we entered into with Cap Metro was for the park and ride facilities for those BRT lines. And they're in the process of building those facilities out, and we're continuing to reimburse them for. In the FY27 spend plan, there are no new appropriations for Cap Metro specific components, and that's just an element of the interlocal agreements that we have with them.
Right.
As those projects advance, what we typically do and what the board's process has been is to bring a budget amendment for the appropriations as those projects are being brought forward for design or construction. So,
and so that means like decision making on the green line is future when we think we can afford it. And those kind of decisions will be made by the ATP board in collaboration with the city and Cap Metro. But that is someday, if we're building the green line from the prop funds, the ATP board would decide in its budget, those funds can go to that now.
Yeah, so it'll be an element of where we're bringing forward an interlocal agreement and a budget amendment to start those particular design or construction efforts. I think it's more of a ATP Cap Metro collaboration effort as we're kind of implementing Austin Light Rail and figuring out when the other projects are going to continue to advance. So
the final note there is just that I think I've only seen the PowerPoint version of the budget. And so that there may be a much larger document.
Well, our document, is available online. So if you go to atptx.org under the financial section, you'll be able to find our proposed budget.
And the point is that there are things that have been built with some of this money that are improving people's lives already. But like this version of the budget, you don't see that.
Right.
You know,
So-
and so just highlighting that there's money is actually doing things on the ground is always good.
Yep.
You know?
No, hard, 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Crossley. Other folks with questions or comments? Ms. Berry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I have one very simple question. The board members that are on your website, there are 5 board members. Is this website up to date? Are there still only 5 board members with ATP?
Yes, there's 5 voting members and there's 2 ex officio board members.
Okay. I went back and forth. Thank you. I went back and forth if I wanted to ask this question, and I am just curious, as I'm sure people read about the trying to get new office space for ATP, and I'm just curious any updates on that, because I know there was a lot of controversy on that and spending, and I'm just curious if there are any updates on what will be done regarding an office space for ATP.
Yeah, so included in our budget, we're actually carrying the same lease costs for the facility that we're currently in. I think it's anticipated over the next month or so that there's going to be conversations at the board level as to how to proceed with the office space for ATP.
I'm so sorry, just to jump in here. What I'm hearing is though that I think it seems like there's not moving to a new space. The plan right now is to stay in the immediate space that we're in.
So from the budget standpoint, that's how we approached it. Just to carry some level of cost, there still needs to be a conversation at the board level as to whether that's truly going to happen in FY27 or whether we're going to stay here, whether we're going to consider some other space. So.
That's helpful. And yeah, of course, the board makes the final determination. That's understandable. Ms. Berry, did you have other follow-up questions? I'm sorry I jumped in.
No, I appreciate you jumping in, and I was going to ask for that clarification as well. So right now, just once again, as the budget is right now, as you're presenting, is to stay in this building until the board chooses to have a conversation moving forward.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other folks with questions or comments? I know I have a few. I'll start, and folks want to jump in, please do. One is, so just looking at the betterments, the 4 million for betterments, you talked about sort of what the expectation for that is, but are we assuming that we would start expending some of those funds next year, or do you think they're likely to be a carryover in future years? I'm just curious, honestly, what that looks like.
Yeah, so the $4 million that we have included in our fiscal year 27 budget are to proceed with design related for those betterments. So those costs would be incurred in FY27. And again, is just to kind of take a step back, we entered into another local agreement with the city where the city was agreeing to reimburse ATP for these betterment costs. So
Appreciate that. So that's actually honestly kind of exciting to hear as well, that those designing and planning for those betterments is happening at the same time as well, which now that I say it sounds logical, but at least that was to Mr. Crossley's point, right? Like that we're not internalizing that work is already in some ways happening. How exciting is that? The other question I had was same honestly for right-of-way acquisition as well. It's in there. Are we expecting right-of-way acquisition to are we going to start expending?
yeah, so right now, again, if you remember early in 2026, the board approved the ability for staff to start to proceed with right-of-way acquisition for a certain set of parcels. So the idea is that, yeah, late fiscal year 2027, some of those costs will be coming to fruition, and we're embedding those costs into our spend plan for next year.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Other committee members with questions or comments? Mr. Crossley, please go ahead.
I just thought about something. We were having another meeting and I looked at the version of the same presentation from the board meeting, but that one I think had more slides, and there was something about just I don't remember the language, but about the business support program. And so my point was that was included in that version. And that I think we just want to support those efforts. And that is essentially eventually a board decision in the budget that we're going to put monies into those things. But
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, I think there was a broader overview done for the board prior to the budget proposal conversation. But yes, it's one of the efforts that they're going to be pursuing and trying to push forward at staff level in 27. So
I guess just technically speaking, if we want to make recommendations, that would be timely to say,
yeah,
we support those efforts.
And I'm sorry, ask a follow-up question, which is, I'm going to assume it's in the budget document, but do we have a sense of the cost or that it's appropriated as part of the proposed budget at this time?
yeah. So a lot of the costs for the business support program going into 27 are really embedded in the staff augmentation or like that AECOM contract that we're utilizing, because a lot of it is developing that program itself and not necessarily having money go out yet to businesses to help support. A lot of that will come in 20 or once we're in construction. But yeah, a lot of the services or expected costs with that particular portion of the program are going to be utilizing, again, that staff augmentation contract to get the resources on board so that we can start to develop that program and have a conversation with the board and CAC as to how that's all advancing. So
that's really helpful to know. And if I might just put just mention that to other committee members, what Mr. Crossley is talking about is, I think we as a governance working group had this conversation. I know the displacement prevention working group has had some conversation too. We are going to be looking more holistically at what the business support program looks like and whether there is participation from the anti-displacement funds and some of that. So that's partially what we're trying to figure out what this looks like. And it's good to know that at least we have some timeline for planning. We have some timelines before implementation, figuring that out. That's helpful. Other folks with questions or comments? If not, well, thank you all so much. Really appreciate you all being there and sharing this. Excited to see a picture of us already doing some soil related work. Thank you very much. We'll turn to our CAP Metro staff. And I know folks have joined us virtually. I'll turn it over to you, and we're just pulling up the presentation as well. Thank you all so much for being here.
Good evening, everybody. Can you all see my the screen I'm sharing?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. Good evening. My name is Emmanuel Toutan, the budget director here at CAP Metro. I'm here today to present the budget proposal for fiscal year 2027. And then our CFO, Kevin Conlon, will talk about the proposed fare increase. So our budget is structurally sound and balanced. We have sufficient ongoing revenue to fund operations and capital needs. We're meeting all of our operating reserve requirements, and our statutory operating and budget stabilization reserves are fully funded.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to butt in. Just going to say, sir, if you can slow down a little, just so our interpreters can follow along. Believe me, I have this issue every time.
Yeah, I will repeat some of that. I will start again. Yeah, I'm just saying that the budget is structurally sound and balanced. We have sufficient ongoing revenue to fund operations and capital needs. We're meeting all of our reserve requirements, and also our statutory operating and budget stabilization reserves are fully funded. Our projected sales tax growth for next year is 2%. We saw a decline in sales tax growth in fiscal years 2024 and 2025, but have since seen an upward trend so far in the first 8 months of the fiscal year through the May receipts of this current fiscal year, which is a good sign. Of course, we consider customer-focused transit infrastructure projects when we develop our budget and capital improvement plan. So here's a summary of our operating budget. On the left-hand side is a pie chart for our operating revenue, and we are projecting 508.9 million for the next fiscal year. As you can see in the big blue portion, we're heavily dependent on sales tax, which represents about 82% of our revenue. On the right-hand side is our operating expenses at 485.6 million, and half of it is for contracted transit services. Our budget supports increased CAP Metro Rapid operations. It also includes maintenance and all support services, as well as funding for rail dispatch, maintenance, and operations that is moving in-house starting in January 2027. So we're going from a contracted services for rail into an in-house, mostly in-house operations. So our operating revenue, we have, it's based on our projections for ridership projections for next year, as well as the proposed fare increase to start on January 2027 that we're going to discuss after this presentation. We have federal grants, approximately 40 million annually in the Section 5307 funds, which is fairly constant over the years. And also we have some revenue from freight railroad, which is on target to hit our budget of about 5.4 million this year. This slide is just for illustration purposes. I will not go through it, but from the left to the right, you see our historical sales tax receipts since fiscal year 2022 and the fiscal year 2027 budget on the right-hand side. So I will just move on. So our operating cost drivers. So the budget includes a full year of increased frequency on two rapid routes, Pleasant Valley and Expo Center. We only had that started in we only had 3 months of increased frequency from 20 minutes to 10 minutes last year, and we're now in FY27 budgeting for the full year since the full year of increased frequency. Also, we have budget, as I talked about earlier, about the rail structure change with commuter rail operations moving mostly in-house. On the fuel prices side, the prices remain high, and we currently do not have fuel hedging in place like we normally do in previous years due to those high prices we've experienced for quite a while now. Our budget also includes a pay increase for our administrative employees, and as always, we always consider our strategic plan initiatives when we prepare the budget each year. Some high-level highlights on the capital budget. So our 5-year capital plan. Capital improvement plan, the biggest items improve North-based demand response facility, also a rail station at North Burnett Uptown, purchases of hybrid buses, as well as bus stop enhancements, which is something that we do heavily every year. This is our proposed 5-year capital plan, so I will not go through the numbers, but our total 5-year plan is about 647 million, and the state of good repair represents about 36% of that 5-year total. Our local funding is about 64%, and grants and contributions represent the remaining 36% of our funding. We're nearing the end of the completion of the budget, and the next steps are really the public hearing on the proposed budget on September 16th, and final board approval at CAP Metro is scheduled for September 28th. This concludes my presentation this evening. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you very much. Open it up for folks for questions or comments. Mr. Grossley, go ahead.
Well, it's possibly sort of a budget question, but I'm very curious about the in-housing of rail operations and just I would assume the idea being that long-term we can be more efficient and save money by in-housing, but is that the story there or what's happening with that?
So I'll go ahead and jump in. So it's great to be here with the committee. My name's Kevin Conlon. I serve as Cap Metro CFO. So that was a great question. We're taking three elements of the rail operations. So we are going to take operations, dispatch, and then vehicle maintenance in-house beginning in January of next calendar year. We did contract out maintenance away just because it's too capital prohibitive to purchase all the equipment to go that route. But the reasoning is to be more effective in both operations and be both operations and cost when we went out to procurement, and actually have more control of the operations as well, and just to be more sustainable on the line going forward and into the future.
Okay, great, thanks. And that, I guess I'm curious, does that allows Cap Metro to have some more, like basically more flexibility on the operations part, and thinking about Austin FC games and things like that, Cap Metro can kind of move vehicles more the way it wants, essentially.
It does. It gains us better control, over the operations, over the dispatch, which is a big deal in running rail, and then especially too in vehicle maintenance. So we can ensure that those 30-year diesel motor units, do reach 30 years or maybe beyond, and just be in control of the maintenance and the maintenance plans on our 10 DMUs.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And that might be one of those very boring, but it's a good governance story, So it's a need if that's a good story in the budget there.
Right. And then just to add to that, we did actually within the last 2 weeks hire a new vice president of rail with experience in Denver, experience in Dallas, coming over from Rio Grande. His name is Kenny Day. He's hit the ground sprinting, not running, but sprinting. So we're happy to have him on board too, going into January.
Thank you very much. Other committee members with questions or comments? Ms. Summers, please go ahead.
Yeah, the first one is super easy. I think I know the answer, but I'm just checking my understanding. I saw there was a construction of like a North Burnett rail station. Is that what we have been calling Broadmoor Station? North Burnett Uptown.
That is what's been called Broadmoor in the past, and it's been renamed about 6 months ago. And we're not using Broadmoor anymore, but it's one and the same though.
Okay, great. I had missed that, so that's good to know. I also wanted to ask, as we're on the right screen for it, about the bus stop enhancements and improvements. We had a really helpful presentation a couple months ago about how Cap Metro is investigating, which stations have which amenities, a trash can or, arrival board or different shelters or a bench or things of that nature. It was a really helpful presentation. And I think that, you know, on our committee, it's hard to get really rigorous. I think there's some appetite to start to get more rigorous, to think about how we can, as citizens and as the CAC, make recommendations about that. And I was just curious, like in that highlight, like I know there was a lot of talk around the benches and the trash cans. These have come up over and over, like both having trash cans, emptying trash cans, like sort of the ongoing maintenance of those. So I guess I was curious if y'all could speak to any more about how the budget is handling enhancements, improvements, and maybe just like maintenance of the stations, like, cleanup or emptying the trash. Because we heard a lot about that, but I was curious if anything, changed in the budget this coming year.
Basically, on the operations side, we've carried about the same funding forward as far as maintaining stops and stations. The capital side is much more robust for the 5-year capital improvement plan. We have just over $27 million budgeted over 5 years for improvements. It's going to be, like you mentioned, trash cans, also bus benches, but also a lot of shelters to protect people from the elements, especially the heat and the rain. And if you compare stops and stations to maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it's a dramatic difference. We used to, 5, 6 years ago, we didn't have shelters with those side shadings for sun. So we're going to continue that. And fortunately, also, we've been awarded 2 grants over the next 5 years that will help fund part of that, plus $27 million for improvements over the next 5 years as well. So that's a great story also.
That's all awesome to hear, and something that our committee has definitely been. We'll want to hear more about how that all develops because we're very excited about those types of things. I would
Sure.
just encourage, like, the maintenance part is important too. Like, we heard that, like, we want to give trash. I mean, I'm overstating what we heard probably, but like, we have
Right.
trash cans, but then we can't staff to keep them emptied, on a as much as we would like. And so then, there may be overflowing or something. So I think that thinking about as we add more infrastructure and facilities across the system, then
Right.
maintenance also has to follow with that. So definitely being attentive to that.
And that's a big focus with the executive team going in the budget and more so the budget side, the operational side, to make sure that we're actually, performing on the street as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Summers. Other committee members with questions or comments? Mr. Brooks.
Just point out that there is a dashboard that shows the level
Right.
of improvements for each stop that Cap Metro has put up. And that's all, putting up a dashboard is part of this whole effort. And it's an important part because it lets the general public at any time look at what they've done versus having to go to a specific presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Ms. Ortiz, go ahead.
Hi, and going back on that service standards and guidelines, that is currently being reviewed as we had mentioned when the presentation came. So there will be updates to what that looks like and how we're planning in the future as well.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Other folks with questions or comments? I definitely have a question. Again, if folks want to think of something while I'm doing that, please go ahead and do that. And I'm sorry for asking this. You might not know off the top of your head, and that's fine. Can you talk a little bit about what the expenditure looks like as planned or proposed for the public safety component? Of course, there's the transit police, but the specialists and also the ambassador program. If you know off the top of your head, do you have an idea on what it's looking like on the public safety side of the infrastructure as well?
Are you talking specific to transit police or?
Transit police, it could be ambassadors, it could be our specialist, all of it.
Okay, so transit police, we currently have 23 sworn officers, but we are actually planning on increasing the department by an additional 7 next year. So we're taking this, of course, we're taking a lot of the transit police spending. There's a little bit of a capital element. We're taking that budget from about a $3.7 million budget in the current year up to about 4.4 million. So there's a really heavy emphasis in safety security around the system, ambassadors, and our social work side. That's basically staying the same as far as staffing goes, but working in more police officers over time and as the budget allows as well.
And again, this might not be a question for you, but for the public safety team. But I guess I'm wondering, is there, of course, there's funding constraints. Is there any capacity to maybe also have the social workers or the ambassador side expand as well?
I believe we did expand during the current year. I believe we brought on another 1 or 2 on the social work side. And that's, it really, it's always described as a 3-legged stool. It's our ambassadors, our social workers, and our transit police all working hand in hand out in the system on that. So, each of the legs is, of course, very important.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Other committee members with questions or comments? Um, as we're wrapping up, I do want to make a quick comment on the fare increase conversation. Our committee that was working on the budget had a pretty robust conversation. I'm not going to speak for others here. It's always challenges to talk about fare increases, but I also see how that fits in the budget that we have in front of us, right? So I think in some ways we appreciate the work that has gone in from Cap Metro over the past several years for setting up Equifare and the reduced fare program, combining it with our fare capping and the UMO app, but also cards, like you name it. There has been several improvements in how riders pay and how much they pay over the last few years. So in some ways, I just want to thank Cap Metro for setting us up in a way where we know that as we're talking about fare increases, which again is always a hard discussion, but we know that some of those folks who might be the most vulnerable from an economic perspective, or those who are core riders, will have some kind of buffer around them. So again, just honestly, a thank you to the Cap Metro staff for thinking over that for the few years and then also realizing how fares fit within the larger budget conversation. Do you want to
Chair,
say
that's a
something to
good
it?
tee up. We actually have about a 5-minute presentation just to give a committee an update on our fare proposal if we have time.
I would love to see that. I'm looking around. Any concerns from folks? Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so let me jump right in. We appreciate being here. We appreciate the opportunity to brief the committee on our fare proposal. So jumping right in, why is Cap Metro proposing to increase fares? Just some of the things that we've done recently. So since 2015, as you mentioned, for 11 years, we have not increased fares. We've recently launched the 2 new rapid services in East Austin. We've expanded and introduced pickup zones. We're up to 12 pickup zones now. We cover all the way from Leander down to Duff Springs and then over from Lago Vista to Manor. As I mentioned earlier, we have 23 transit police officers that are sworn. That's growing. We've increased frequency on key routes, creating a high frequency network that connects people in the region. Since 2015, of course, cost for labor, fuel, equipment, maintenance, technology, basically every cost for the agency has increased significantly. Inflation's continued to climb over the years, and we still haven't increased fares for 11 years. So increasing fares that'll assist in maintaining reliable service, our state of good repair on our current assets, and investment in future transit improvements. And even after we increase fares on our 2-phase approach, we'll still remain among the lowest of peer agencies in the nation. So moving on, this is actually just a summary of our proposed new fare increases. They're proposed to increase in 2 phases, effective with our January 2027 service change, and then again in January of 2029. So it's a moderate 2-phase approach. It's going to be across local pickup, express, rail, and access services. We'll continue fare capping for both daily and monthly service, and then pickup rides will now be capped on a daily and monthly basis. So just to cover quickly, for local and pickup, our current fares are $1.25. We're proposing next January to go to $1.50 and then $2 in 2029. For commuter, our current fares are $3.50, proposing to go to $4 and then $5 in 2027 and 2029. For Metro Access, our current fare is $1.75. We're proposing to go to $2.25 and then to $3.25. Also, we have been to the Access Advisory Board for Cap Metro already on this one. And then we've also, in this chart, put in there what our day cap and our monthly caps will be for each of the services. We do offer a monthly pass for Metro Access, and then we do offer a very robust reduced service for both local and commuter fares as well, which will actually be expanded when we do the service change in January of 2027. So if we keep on moving to the next slide, we just have some data.
Mr. Conlon, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Before
sure.
you go on, I just want to quickly mention to committee members, this information, the new fares, the proposed fares are on the website as well. I know that was a small slide. If you want to follow along with all the detail. Thank you so much, Mr. Conlon. Please continue.
Yeah, not a problem. That's an excellent point. We have a very robust tile out on our website that'll take you to all the information about the fare increases. There's a place where you can actually drop comments. I'm going to have in just a couple slides where we're going to have a few more community engagement events that, you know, you can come out and make comments as well. And there's also a great depiction of the fair history of Cap Metro out on the website as well, which everybody should go take a look at. So this slide, it's basically based on data provided in 2024, a few years ago, from the American Bus Benchmarking Group. And they're a group of medium-sized agencies in North America that Cap Metro participates with. The average fare for our peer agencies is the red line that runs across. It's $1.85 back in 2024, so potentially higher in 2026. So this slide shows Cap Metro's fares, which haven't changed since 2015, and there are proposed 2027 and 2029 fare increases. So even after the proposed changes, Cap Metro fares would remain amongst the lowest comparable transit agencies nationwide. And then lastly, I'll just walk through our 4 community engagement events that we have for the proposed increase. We've already held 2. We held one on January 30th up at the Goodwill Career and Technical Academy up by the Norwood Walmart, just down the hill from there. The second was held on August 6th at ACC Northridge. We have 2 events coming up next week. So next Tuesday, we'll be at ACC Riverside. Next Wednesday, we'll be at ACC South Austin. And both of those events are scheduled to run from 5 to 7:30 p.m. We have the route information that'll connect, you know, the different bus routes to those 2 ACC locations. But that's going to conclude our update on the fare proposal. We'd be happy to, you know, take your guys' comments or questions on the proposal as well.
Thank you so much. Committee members, questions or comments? Oh, Ms. Berry, please go ahead.
Thank you for this information. This is really great. And thank you, Melissa, for putting the link into the chat as well for us to find it online. I am curious if you're able to provide any feedback that you guys have heard in the sessions that you guys have already posted.
I'll jump in, but let me let Melissa go first, since she's more in charge of those events.
Sure. So far, and we've been out in addition to the public meetings, we've been out at several community events. Right now, we're going up to 15. And, you know, I think once we're explaining the reasons behind the fare increase, and then also that we have a program with reduced fare, which expands the eligibility for people who have a low income. The feedback has been, I won't say that it's a positive feedback, but I think that once we go through and talk with people, it's understanding of where we are and why we're doing it. And so we do ask that that you share these opportunities with your network, because we would like to see more people come out to the public meetings where we've had more conversations being out at community events. But coming to the public meetings is where people will really be able to get a more in-depth understanding of what we're doing as an agency and how these fairs support that.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Does other staff want to add something to that? If not, Ms. Berry, did you have any follow-up questions to that?
No, that's helpful. And I know you guys are still gathering information. I was just curious, since you guys have already hosted some, what was being heard. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Crossley.
I guess I'm curious. I don't know the answer, so I don't mean it as a gotcha or something, but the comparison slides showed El Paso and then other places and then the average, but just basically I think Via and Trinity Metro and DART and Houston Metro and Cap Metro are the big ones in Texas. And so in terms of fares with the new proposed fare, would we be in line with or less than those other big city transit fares?
I mean, some people some other agencies, especially more localized, when we're talking Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, they do different fare structures also than what we're moving towards. We've gone to a very straightforward, simplified fare structure. Like Melissa was saying, with this change in January, we're adding an element to our reduced fare program of, below a household poverty level. I know I'm more familiar with VIA. I know VIA does still, we've gone away from passes as far as 7 and 31-day passes. We've gone more to a fare capping, which can be very advantageous towards our customers. Right now, VIA is a little bit higher than we are as far as fares go. Dallas works more on I believe Dallas works more on a pass system than we do, so it may not be comparable. I think we still may come in once we increase fares a little bit over, say, San Antonio, and Houston, but I think nationwide and actually, not increasing our fares for 11 years and how we're taking it in a moderate two-step approach instead of taking it, because we had several different proposals, and we've of course utilized a specialized vendor that's 49's Technologies, and run many different models. And of course we have Title VI studies associated to the fare increases. So I think we've taken a much needed after 11-year fare increase, but a very compassionate to our customer and regions as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Crossley. Other folks with questions or comments? Mr. Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'm curious about the rail rates most in particular. I understand the need for the fare increase for sure, and I want to start by saying like I'm on the side of Cap Metro as my default position. But we're talking about $8 a day, and that is whether you're going from Leander to downtown or Plaza Saltillo to downtown. And that, or MLK to Plaza Saltillo to, whatever routing, but like there's quite a big disparity in how much you're getting for that $8 per day. And $8 per day is nothing to scoff at. And I'm wondering if y'all have thought about that. I have mixed feelings on the things like, BART, where it has you tap in, tap out, and it can get quite expensive as you move across the bay. But it just like I'm not going to use the rail to go from downtown to MLK if it's going to cost me $8.
Sure.
And so I'm curious about how y'all have thought through that. And, maybe even if you have, I know y'all have done some ridership projections as it goes when you increase fares. I'm curious about all of those kind of things. So if you have anything to share on that, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, specifically for commuter, which encompasses rail and express, I mean, we've discussed it at an executive level as far as, some agencies, a lot of transit systems in Europe use zones. So there'll be an inner core zone, and of course you have outer zones as well. We've talked about that. The capital costs can go up rather high when you start actually charging by zones, and the additional equipment software that's needed to monitor and actually effectuate that change. So we've talked about it, and we did land, that we need, at least going into it, we need to stick how we are right now. Of course, when you do either a day cap or a month cap is super advantageous if you ride the rail all the time, of course. And that, just to let you know too, and I assume everybody may know this, is that, when you do go commuter, that actually does extend to local and pickup as well. So it covers basically all our services once you do that day cap and the month cap. So it does extend to our local and pickup services as well, or pickup in January, I should say. And then just to talk about ridership projections, of course, 49's utilizing them, they did run, elasticity and ridership projections and the decline of ridership. So we are projecting a very conservative, about a 7% decrease because of fares in the first one. And really, I think the second one, let me pull up a number real quick. But the second one, we had projected really less than 1% impact on the second one, just because the first one would be much more dramatic because we haven't done an increase in over 11 years.
Any other follow-up questions, any member?
Not, yeah, I appreciate that. Did you say, what was the first percentage for the 2027?
Just around 7% decline.
Okay. Ooh. Yeah,
That's a course of projection.
right. I hope it is much less.
Right, sure.
But yeah, I am, 'cause I know the subsidy on the red line is already pretty high. I mean, I'm a season ticket holder to Austin FC, and there's every time I get on the trains to go home, I'm just like, I see the packed trains and it's wonderful, but I'm like, none of these people paid their fare. And I think about the way things aren't captured. And I would love to keep the conversation ongoing about how to make sure that can happen, because that's a high ridership event, and if we can capture, however many thousands of people are taking the train at that point, and
Right.
I think the pricing thing should still be considered, whether that's like a tap out or what. It does seem strange for me to pay $8 to go 2 stations versus someone in Leander.
Right.
And so I know that we're not fixing that in this meeting today, but as CAC, this is me being community giving you unwarranted advice. So thanks for hearing me out.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's excellent points, and, appreciated. And it's something that's been discussed and will be discussed in the future, of course, with our executive level and our CEO.
Other folks with questions or comments? Hopefully I have a quick one, Mr. Conlon. I just asked, just to confirm, I know currently fare capping is set at 2 rides per day. So think of 1 trip back and forth. Is that going to be the idea moving forward as well? So essentially 2 rides is where fare would be capping at?
That's correct. And that it's done, we have tap to pay too. We introduced tap to pay with credit cards and then digital wallets as well. So if you pay with that way, the day cap is available. The monthly cap will not be available in that method because we're not going to be storing that credit card information. But of course, we have UMO accounts, UMO reloadable cards where you can take advantage of both day and monthly cap. And the day cap is 2 rides, and then you're capped for the remainder of the day.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, well, thank you so much to all of our Cap Metro staff, and thank you for the conversation on the fares as well.
You're welcome.
This takes us, committee members, to our next presentation, which is from our Cities Project Connect office. We'll start there, and then we can go to our Austin housing staff as well. And give us a moment as we're pulling up the presentation.
Sure. There you go. Okay. You can hide the notes. We good? Yeah. Okay. Well, good evening, Chair and committee members. Thank you for having me here tonight to present. My name is Leanne Conti. I'm the Interim Mobility Officer of the city's Austin Project Connect office. And we can go to the next slide. So I know some of y'all, but not all of y'all. So I thought I might just start by talking about who is Austin Project Connect. We are a small office that is dedicated to supporting the implementation of Project Connect. We provide technical support services to our partners, the Austin Transit Partnership and CAP Metro, as they deliver the various components of the Project Connect program. So our city staff are technical experts in a variety of areas, including utilities, transportation, permitting, real estate, planning, and we provide those services to our partners to advance Project Connect projects. We are funded, as Brian Rivera, ATP CFO, mentioned earlier, we are funded via an interlocal agreement with Austin Transit Partnership on a reimbursement basis. And we are co-located here with ATP in the office. And I meant to preface earlier, you know, this was a proposed budget presentation. It is now the budget presentation, as Chair mentioned earlier. City Council did adopt the budget yesterday. Next slide, please. So in terms of getting to know us and what we do, I cover very briefly our key accomplishments from this past year. So in late 2025, we executed a right-of-way acquisition interlocal agreement with ATP. Brian also referred to this. This is an agreement to partner to acquire properties that would be needed for the project. ATP, as a local government corporation, does not have eminent domain authority in the state. And so the city will step in and partner with them if and when we need to condemn property for the project. So we have a partnership agreement for that. We also delivered permitting tools for Austin Light Rail. These are, Austin Light Rail is unique in that it is a linear project largely within the city's right-of-way, spanning multiple watersheds, crossing a river, impacting a number of utilities in the reconstruction of the roadway. It is not what our land development code envisioned when we design regulations to regulate site development. And we are not developing a site, we are building a transportation system, right? So we have prepared a number of permitting tools that address that unique nature of the project, including an amendment to the Transit System Projects Ordinance. There was an original ordinance from 2022. We've added additional tools in that ordinance and created a permitting manual as an administrative document that helps both city reviewers and ATP's designers in understanding what the permitting process will look like for the project. We have also participated in ATP's main procurements this year, both the light rail and operation and maintenance facility, progressive design build contracts, as well as the light rail vehicle contract, lending city expertise and thought behind those procurements. We also supported CAP Metro in their completion of the two rapid projects and the park and ride facilities as part of those projects, helping them through the final permitting and inspection phases of those projects. And then lastly, in May, Brian also mentioned this, we secured council direction to enter into an interlocal agreement with Austin Transit Partnership on the design phase of Austin Light Rail. And so that commits the city to a number of responsibilities in design phase, including, we talked about this earlier, the betterment, the $36 million in funding for betterments as part of the project, which crosses 3 different city utilities. So, and we are in the process of finalizing our negotiations on that interlocal agreement. And that interlocal agreement is what will continue the funding for the office moving into FY27 and will replace or essentially succeed in the interlocal agreement we have now that will expire at the end of this fiscal year. So looking ahead to FY27 and even beyond, what are we hoping to do as a team? So we are looking to initiate the permitting process for Austin Light Rail in compliance with those documents that I mentioned earlier, to start reviewing the work and the design to allow ATP to begin some of the early work construction that they've laid out for FY27. There's a number of enabling projects. Essentially, we need to move, one block out of the way so that we can move another block into that space, like relocating facilities so that we can have construction on those corridors. We are also going to support ATP in completing the project development phase. That's the current phase of the federal grant process that ATP is in, completing that in 2027 and entering into that next phase. We are also helping to review preliminary engineering and environmental documents related to the airport extension to continue to advance that work, and in coordination with the Austin Bergstrom expansion program. As you might have known, or if you've been to the airport as of late, there are a lot of activities going on there. So advancing the airport extension design while the arrival and departure hall design is being advanced out at the airport is a great opportunity in this year. And then looking ahead, where we talked about a design interlocal agreement, we are looking then in the next year or two at a construction interlocal agreement where the city will commit to the funding for the construction of the betterments, as well as the other roles that the city will play during construction as the owner and operator of the right-of-way where much of this construction will be happening. So that's what we're looking to do. Going to the next slide, this is going to look very familiar because I stole it from from ATP's budget presentation to the board in July. Just noting, you probably noticed this earlier, under the partner coordination heading, the City of Austin Project Connect office is listed. So we are under the administrative expenses for Austin Transit Partnership in FY27. And then going to the next slide, this is the boring fund summary slide that shows our proposed budget for FY27 and planned budget for FY28. Things I'll highlight here, this takes us to 17 and a half FTEs in FY27. And that's a removal of an existing vacancy, and then an addition of a half-time FTE to support some of the financial transactions between the city and ATP. As you can imagine, as ATP enters permitting, there will be a lot of financial transactions that will be occurring, and having a dedicated analyst for that role. We also have included in this budget dedicated support for those real estate acquisition activities that we talked about earlier, as well as for traffic control plan review in lieu of ATP paying the fees for traffic control plan review, because that is a cost of service fee. With council's action yesterday, they in the fee schedule waived those fees for Austin Light Rail. So we have the staff support within this budget to provide that service, and we will continue to provide the service as that we have been over the last several years with our employees. And I believe that is my last slide. Yes. So happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conti. Folks, questions or comments? Oh, Ms. Summers, please go ahead.
Yeah, and we can revisit this at a future meeting, but it was great to hear that y'all are advancing work with the airport and aligning with the airport expansion. I just was at the airport a couple times in a matter of weeks and definitely noticed the activities you were mentioning also, so that's exciting. I think that figuring out how to integrate the extension into the airport is really of crucial importance. We've heard over and over from the community that rail to the airport is Austin light rail to the airport is a priority. We know it's a priority extension. But making sure that it's usable for people, even though historically communities say they want rail to the airport, sometimes the ridership doesn't pan out as much as you think with an airport extension. I think we should do it, but I think we should do it in the absolute best way possible to make it convenient for people and really integrate it into that expansion. I've heard some things or seen some things that make me a little concerned there. So I think it's awesome that y'all are including that in your budget and advancing that. And I think that this body would certainly be quite interested as soon as there's a apt time to take that up and hear more about that and give feedback. That would be something we'd be keenly interested in.
Absolutely. And I think that would probably be a joint presentation, and Austin Transit Partnership could talk about their work on the airport extension. Happy to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Crossley.
I guess this is getting possibly far from this year's budget, but on that note, there was a time when there were drawings shown to the public of a light rail station where the train went right up to the terminal. And then there was a decision that my impression is it came from airport planner types to move it significantly away. And is that decision still being played around? Is there some chance that the light rail station will be at the terminal still, or is that just done and it has to be in the middle of a parking lot?
I am not familiar with the graphic that you're speaking to, but it would happy to follow up with you on the current thinking about the coordination with the airport expansion.
Yeah, and so the point is just if there are decision points, we may be keenly interested and might be able to be very helpful in thinking through those priorities on how to just make it actually useful. Thank you.
And Mr. Crossley, I'll mention to that, when we get to future agenda items, it might be worthwhile to ask Bergstrom folks, but also Austin, ATP and all to maybe come present. So we have relevant staff that really knows the design aspects to it. But I will honestly throw in support for exactly what you and Vice Chair Summers are saying, that yes, we would like to see integrated design. I think I would say honestly, it's a good thing. It definitely makes me think every time if I use rideshare at our airport it's easier to hop on the bus than it is to take rideshare. And that is the way in some ways it should be, right? Similarly, same goes for parking. So you want to make it so it is the easiest mode for folks to use. And our current actual system allows that. If questions or comments from other folks? Yes, Mr. Brooks.
I've read a bit about the costs of public transit projects. Most notably the NYU report. And one of it's a listing of horror stories. One of the horror stories they list is a transit project that got very behind schedule because they forced it to go through the same permitting process as any developer. And so seeing that this special group from the city of Austin was going to shepherd project light rail permitting through the system, automatically got full points with me and probably reduced the bond rate that we would get charged. So it was a very good thing to hear.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. And I'll add to that, yes. And I know it's Austin Project Connect now. I'll get the department's name right at some point. But really kudos to Austin Project Connect and the city for working on that and the fee structure and really making sure, as a public agency, we're as much as possible really, making sure that the work of another public sector, work that's happening at ADP is able to be complemented. So thank you to y'all for the work on that. Okay, well, thank you so much, Ms. Connie. And this takes us to our last presentation, which is from our Austin Housing staff. And I welcome you all to come up.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. It is just me tonight. Additional staff, they are here if we have questions, more detailed questions.
Do you want to introduce yourself while we're pulling up your slide?
Absolutely. It is good to see everyone, especially I'm familiar with the anti-displacement working group. Haven't seen you in a while. My name is Nefertiti Jackman. I serve as the Community Displacement Prevention Officer for the City of Austin, working in Austin Housing. And tonight, I'm just going to provide a brief overview of where we are today with our anti-displacement spending. Voters approved $300 million with the vote to support Project Connect, and Austin Housing Department is the steward of those funds. So this evening, what I will share with you is sort of the purpose and then the spending timeline and how we have developed the priorities to spend the $300 million. I will also provide the recommendations from the Community Advisory Committee to help everyone understand how our budget allocations work. Then we'll just briefly discuss the allocations to date and talk about sort of next steps. There are the programs, a number of programs are in different phases, and we've received directions both from the Community Advisory Committee and city leadership. So I'll give an update in terms of where we are, and then I'll open it up for questions. So as I shared, the $300 million was part of the contract with the voters for Project Connect. And the goal was to make sure that we developed an equitable transit system that really benefited the entire community. But most importantly, we wanted to ensure that, or the community, I would say, wanted to ensure that the transit investments did not displace people, both businesses and those who have called Austin home. So that is the purpose of the $300 million. Thank you. And the spending timeline, some of you have probably seen it many times. In the first 3 years, we did an investment of over $100 million, with the first $23 million being dedicated to land acquisition. And that was guidance that we received from council. And then you will see the allocations to date. Right now where we are, so within the first 3 years, $100 million was allocated. And so each year since 2023-24, there's been an allocation of $20 million. And Austin Housing staff work closely with the Community Advisory Committee to determine what those funding allocations look like. Thank you. And so we have developed the spending priorities. The guidance that we received in the contract with the voters is to create an equity tool and to work with the Community Advisory Committee. And so this is something that has remained central to the work in terms of how the dollars are deployed for the $300 million. In the beginning, we worked with a wide range of community stakeholders to identify the priority people, places, and purposes for which the funds would be allocated. And then we have continued to work once the Community Advisory Committee was up and running. We work with them basically every 3 years to establish budget priorities. The good thing about having these allocations made every 3 years, it allows for both staff and those organizations that we contract with to do the work to have to really make impact and to demonstrate impact with the funding. So we're not doing this year to year, which would be could be very challenging to see meaningful outcomes in a very short period of time. So this allows for good planning, and a lot of the information, all of the information where the dollars are spent are captured on a dashboard, which we have. Okay. Thank you. So in addition, I think there might be one more. Did I do both already? Yep. Thank you. You got them. Developing the spending priorities. And then so here, what we have outlined, this is from the CAC Anti-Displacement Prevention Work Group. This is for 26, 27, and 28. $60 million was available for spending. And through community engagement, working with consultants and city staff, the recommendations from the CAC working group was to allocate $46 million over the 3-year period for affordable housing development and acquisition, land acquisition, as well as preservation of existing multifamily housing. And then $9 million will be allocated to other anti-displacement strategies, addressing immediate needs of people who are facing displacement pressures, as well as funding for staffing, administration, community engagement, and marketing. And so the next 3 slides will show how the $20 million is allocated for each year. So for year 1, 2026, you will see $18 million is going to real estate, affordable housing development. $500,000 is allocated for programs and other strategies, and that's specifically displacement prevention strategies, and $1.5 million for staffing, administration, community engagement, and marketing. So that's year 1. This is where we are. Next slide for year 2. Again, the allocations are equal, but 16 million will go to the affordable housing, 2.5 for programs and other displacement prevention strategies, and 1.5 million for staffing. And then for year 3, which will put us in 2028, 12.5 million for affordable housing, 6 million for programs and other strategies, and 1.5 million. And yes, we can go to the next slide. And so the total allocations to date with the initial investments is roughly 180 million. Well, it's not roughly, it is actually $180 million in terms of what has been made available to the city. It doesn't mean that we've spent 180 million, but 180 million has been approved by and recommended in terms of how we will spend the dollars from the CAC to council. These recommendations have been approved by council. Next slide, please. And so briefly, I want to talk to you about next steps. There are some programs that were paused, one which it was the Anti-Displacement Community Acquisition Fund, which those dollars were allocated in year 1. It was part of the $23 million land acquisition by council, and a total of $8 million was allocated to the Anti-Displacement Community Acquisition Fund, but that was on pause because there were just a few organizations who were tapping into those funds. So we wanted to see, how do we make it more inclusive? But the fund is designed for nonprofit community development corporations. And then also community initiated solutions. I'll talk about where we are with the evaluation, and then previously allocated funds, which we have not spent to date. So we refer to the Anti-Displacement Community Acquisition Fund as ADCAP, and it is a program for nonprofit affordable housing developers, recognizing that we wanted to expand the opportunity for nonprofit affordable housing developers to help with the development of affordable housing. Council provided this guidance and direction to create this fund carved out of the initial $23 million. What we found, unfortunately, is that there were only 2 organizations that tapped into the program. So we paused it for roughly 2 years, I will say, and we took some time to analyze the program to understand what is working, what are the challenges. And so where we are now, we just had another engagement meeting with stakeholders to really hear from them. What are the ongoing challenges? Even after we did the evaluation, some people were concerned the program hadn't made significant enough modifications to allow more people to participate. So where we are now, one of the things, this program will live with the displacement prevention team as opposed to our real estate team. And we think that there is greater capacity to really oversee and steward the program, making sure that it is effective and inclusive. And so we've made those changes. There are a couple of things we will probably have to go back to council to get approval on. And the remaining dollars in that program is roughly $4.3 million that remains. And then in the future, if it's successful, if we need to do additional allocations, that's something that we would come back to this group and present, like, this is where we are. More organizations are tapping into it. And many of those organizations, what you really see is they're preserving existing naturally occurring affordable housing. And we really want to support that work. Thank you. And then we also have community initiated solutions. It is a program where we have roughly 13 nonprofit organizations who were a part of the initial $20 million allocation. And the range of services that these organizations provide, it ranges from tenant stabilization programs to homeowner stabilization programs, and also programs that focus on economic mobility. And as a result of the recent engagement with the CAC working group, we decided that we wanted to pause where we were with that program to really understand, are these programs being effective addressing the need of households that are facing transit-induced displacement pressures? And so we're in the process of releasing a request for qualifications to identify a firm, an organization to evaluate our existing community-initiated solutions contracts. Next slide. And where we are in terms of the funding for community-initiated solutions, initially there was a $20 million allocation. We did what was called the phase 2. And most of the organizations were invited to submit an application for the additional $10.9 million. There were a couple of exceptions. Some organizations started a little late, and they had not expended their dollars. And so basically, most of the organizations who apply for additional funds, we reallocated $10.9 million based upon an additional application in their prior performance. We did release a solicitation for $5 million this past year, but we did pause awarding those contracts. And we're going to wait until after the evaluation of the existing programs before we reallocate or determine. We want to make sure we identify, are there gaps in services that we should be providing that are not included with our existing range of services or programs. And I will open it now for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jackman. We'll start with Mr. Crossley. And again, folks, you can raise your hands, particularly for folks online. Mr. Crossley, go ahead.
It's sort of like a clarifying thing, but some of these funds are given out in multi-year grants, essentially. So the giving out of new funds is paused, but there are organizations using these funds now, helping people today.
Correct.
And so there's not necessarily going to be a break in the services being provided.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, you are correct. You are correct. The programs are continuing, and the awards, the way they were designed to allow organizations. The first tranche, we allowed up to 3 years of allocations. And so that is continuing. And for the most part, where we are now, many of the organizations will continue with their funding maybe roughly through 2026, 28, 20. Thank you, 28, 29. They're whispering to me and I'm like, I'm not, yes. So thank you.
Okay, thanks.
How wide are y'all defining the displacement zone on the line? Is it 500 feet on this side, 500 feet on how wide is the
Sure, that's a very good question. So one of the things that I mentioned, we work with community members to help us identify both the priority purposes, priority people, as well as places. And so the places really gave us that geographic focus of where the dollars would be spent. And this is something we try to continue to keep at the forefront. We're trying to address, the goal is to address transit-induced displacement. So we look at two criteria. One is, and this was decided with community, we look at within a 1 mile radius of a Project Connect investment where it's happening. And then also, so there's two pieces. Is it in one of the three identified displacement risk areas? So both things have to be true.
Okay.
Yes.
The reason why I bring that up is evidently there was a foreclosure on a 500 unit apartment complex between Burton Drive and Royal Hill, just behind Emo's on Riverside Drive. It's 22 acres. And, I found out about it during Reddit, and then it was too late to get the housing authority to try to go deal with it because the lender was having the sale the first week in August. So there was just no time to act on it, but that would have been a perfect site to throw a bunch of money in and rehab or expand that to move people as they're displaced. That's been a place to put them.
Right.
And we missed it.
Right.
So
I will say our real estate team is looking, and so they will be here next month to talk about the strategy for the acquisition of real estate for specifically multifamily units. And so on my side, we don't focus on the acquisition of multifamily units, but they can. And I'm not sure, but I'm certain they would have had that on their radar, and there could have been a rationale. But I will also say it is also very hard, even the city, to compete with some other real estate investors, right? So we're just another player in the game, and sometimes we don't always have enough money to get in and to acquire properties that become available. Yeah.
Ms. Pinky,
Yes.
so go ahead.
Thank you so much for this. This is a great presentation. I'm just wondering, for those not in the working group, if there's a place where we can see like some of the organizations that have received these grants and the kind of projects that they're working on.
Absolutely. Whenever you guys, we are available to you. So whenever you guys would like an update, our team members, they're here tonight listening, but they would be happy to come back and share the work that they're doing with the organizations and how it's progressing. And what we're basically trying to do is create, if you will, this what's a good word to call it? But we've created a good cohort, if you will, of organizations. We met this, I was not able to join them because I was at a budget meeting, but it's a good group of organizations that are providing from workforce development to needs for seniors, Meals on Wheels. And so there's a range of organizations. And the goal is how do we close the gap and making sure that youth, adults, seniors are all have an opportunity to find some resources along that area that we're focused on.
And before you go, can you please mention the dashboard and the story map as well? There are resources available.
Yes, there are resources available, and we will send it. I'll give it to Carla, and so she can drop it in the chat. We have a dashboard that shows both the real estate investments as well as the investments under community initiated solutions. So you can see exactly where those investments have been made. And so.
Thank you so much. And just like following Mr. Crossley's mention of good stories, I think the idea of like a cohort of organizations covering these gaps, that's a really interesting story.
Other folks, Ms. Berry, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Nefertiti. It's so good.
Ms. Berry.
So good to see. I'm like super bummed I'm not there in person to see all y'all and all of y'all, especially you. you may have mentioned it, but sorry if I missed it. You were talking about how you guys are doing the evaluation of the CIS programs. Did you mention a timeline of sorts of when you guys are hoping to have this completed by?
Yeah, we have not released the request for qualifications. What I am hearing is it should be completed by next spring. So what you will see is we did not allocate any dollars this year. So displacement prevention, not the real estate, we did not allocate any funds. We will wait until after we receive feedback from that evaluation. And so what I'm hearing is this coming spring. At the latest, I'm thinking.
Okay, that's great. And I'm really excited to have that evaluation because I know there was the time and energy put into the evaluation of the ad cap, and there was a lot of great information that from what I heard was learned. And so I think this is it's always helpful to take some time to really evaluate what's being done. So I really appreciate you guys doing that. And I'm really excited and looking forward to seeing what is discovered in the process. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And we will make sure to come back and present to this group the findings if you desire. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Before other folks go, quick follow-up question. Is the expectation that 5 million, which was paused, are we waiting for the evaluation and then we will consider what the next steps related to that are?
Certainly as it relates to CIS. However, what I will say, if there are other priorities that are identified in the meantime, either by city leadership, including mayor and council, or by this working group, and there is a recommendation that we need to move forward. And I'll just give you an example. There might be one from even me, and I will speak to that. For instance, there has been a desire to see a focus on home repair services in that area. So we have the home repair team, but right now we're not doing any investments with home repair in that Project Connect corridor. So there might be something before, but I don't really anticipate it. But again, if a need is identified, and we would like to consider that.
And I'll just quickly make a comment. Well, I appreciate you saying, council and this body can recommend. I would also look to staff to guide us as well. If y'all are looking at your overall displacement prevention work that y'all are doing, you see there's a piece missing, please remember to bring it to us for thought as well.
Absolutely.
Other committee members with questions or comments? We're coming out of time. I'll just make one. Gosh, that's just an awful, horrifying thought, but I'm going to put it out there. Looking at that column chart that we had, we're kind of, to the CAC members, we're kind of in the mid of our expenditure cycle. I don't know where the years went, but here we are. If folks might remember, this funding is actually limited to that 300 million. So when we're saying we have 180 allocated, that means we have 120 left over. And we're in a very difficult, I think, from the perspective of sort of public finances in general, but for the city as well. But something for us to collectively start thinking about, and for staff to hopefully guide us, and that is, we should probably start thinking and planning, what does planning look like at the sunset of those dollars? I feel like when we started this conversation, it always felt like this distant future, and it felt like somebody else will deal with it. That somebody else happens to be us again. So we should remember to deal with it, but just the years are going by and we've made such good investments. What we wouldn't, I know that's something, early CAC members wanted. I would hope folks here care about it as well. What we wouldn't want is all of these investments to fall off a cliff at the end of that period. So, and there's no sustainable funding source right now allocated. So we're going to have to think about this very seriously.
You're correct. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ms. Jackman, and thank you so much for your team as well.
Thank you.
Committee members, this takes us back to our agenda. As I said, for the action item, we do not have an action item today, but we will be asking for that to be put on the agenda for next time. So we will be bringing that back. This does take us to staff updates, and maybe I'll turn to our ATP staff first to see if y'all have any updates. Sure, or maybe we'll go to Ms. Ortiz, to you online first, and then we can pick it up from there.
Thank you. So we do have a few updates, some that have already been talked about, but just a reminder, our CAP Metro Rail will be temporarily closed from Monday, August 24th through Thursday, August 27th, so that work can be completed for the future North and Burnett Uptown Station. Bike share service has resumed August 11th. And then there's also service updates that will begin Sunday, August 16th. And all of this information, you can get it by signing up at CAP Metro Alerts. That way you can get them as they are going out. And that's all my update.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. I'll turn it to Mr. Banks for any. We have a question quickly for Ms. Ortiz. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very excited that the bike share is back up. I use that as critical transit infrastructure for no one else but me, maybe, but it is. I was using it last night and I tried to park because I was almost at my 30-minute limit over by Peace Point, I think it is. And that station is not functional. And I found out when I got there that it was not functional and there's not one super close. So I'm wondering if you know when all of the stations will be open or if that one's an exception.
That's a good question. I'll need to ask our bike team. I do know that we're going through a phase. And so let me ask and I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Giannis, thanks for Austin Transit Partnership. We'll just say continue to tune into our budget conversations that Brian mentioned that we'll be having. And then we will be in touch with y'all about future opportunities to engage with some of the design milestones that are coming up. So we'll be looking to be back out in the community, hopefully relatively soon.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Do we have updates from the city as well?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and committee members. I'm Carla Burrell with Austin Planning, long range and dotted line employee with Project Connect. I feel like I have to sort of introduce myself because it's my first time alone. Okay, a few updates on engagement. There will be a second combined open house.
Slow down a little, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. There will be a second combined open house on August 29th at the Grove Riverside site, where members of the community can learn about the East Riverside Corridor Initiative, the Grove Riverside Development, and the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. Representatives from ATP and CAP Metro will also be tabling at this event. The intent of this open house, similar to the first one, is to allow the public to learn more about efforts shaping the future of the East Riverside community. Housing and planning representatives will be providing information on housing, transit, and public spaces, providing the public yet another chance to help guide the vision so that it reflects what matters most to the people who live, work, and visit East Riverside Corridor. If folks want even more information, you can access a couple of websites. I'll put those online in the chat. The ETOD station area team is also busy preparing the Speak Up Austin survey, which will be opening any day now. The virtual open house meeting is still scheduled for Wednesday, August 26th via Zoom, and the focus group sessions are still on for Friday, August 28th at the Ruiz Branch Library. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Committee members, in the interest of time, would someone mind if does anybody have any issues if we skip working group or committee updates? Looking around, looks like we're good. That takes us to future agenda items. Just to let you all know where we are at, because we have a lot of things coming up in the pipeline, so it's been hard to just let you all know. Next month, we are expecting right now the real estate team to come and talk. So it's slightly in response to what, if you remember, Ms. Almanza, Susana Almanza had come in, made some comments and provided public comments. So we're going to be responding to that, be having that conversation. And then the art program, we're expecting it to come as well. And then we'll be making recommendations on any budget related things that the working group brings. A reminder again, if you're not in the working group and have any recommendations for the budget working group, please send them to Mr. Banks or Sophie, and they will make sure that we're receiving those as well, because, we're quorumed out, so we cannot talk to y'all. Any other future agenda items? Mr. Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from Cap Metro on two things. One, I've not found all the information on this, but the downtown station will be impacted by the I-35 expansion. And some information on how they're planning to bridge that interruption in service. And then also from Cap Metro regarding bike share and the lapse of communication regarding how that closure was handled, including the reopening timeline, the lack of information to the public. And it's an ongoing issue still with annual passes and things like that as well. And so I'd like for a chance for us to get feedback and hear from them on that.
I've made a note of those for sure. I will say a while back, we might dig it up and have staff shared with you. Ms. Ortiz, I might look to you. We can figure it out. Staff had come and presented us to the closure of the red line and how also Cap Metro is aligning the timing for the 35 construction with the double tracking as well. So they're going to try it as much as possible to minimize disruption, but definitely we can have an update.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if there's any plan to bridge over that or what. I would love to find out. And if we've got someone here who can speak to both bike share and that, then they can wear two hats on that. That'd be great.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Summers, please go ahead.
Just highlighting the airport discussion that we had sort of under another item under the budget. Would definitely be really excited to engage with that if there's an opportunity. Also, Giannis mentioned some details about the design contract and vehicle contract. I do think that those are things that we should hear about, as the time is right.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Agreed on all of those. Any other items that folks might want to recommend? Not seeing any. This takes us to our final thing. Before I adjourn, I just want to quickly mention one thing, which is Secretary Garza, Marcel Garza, has stepped off the committee. His family has welcomed a new baby. We're very excited for him. Congratulations to him. But that also means that he's, of course, very much caught up in that. So he's going to be stepping off the committee. So one of the things that the governance working group will be looking at is talking about sending a recommendation for replacement to council and the Cap Metro boards. So that'll be at some point, timing wise, I'll have to see when, but that's going to be a future agenda item for sure. Okay, unless I hear otherwise from anyone, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the CAC at 7:01 p.m. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.